After Jorge Masvidal's crazy flying knee 5-second knockout against Ben Askren, a lot of people are probably thinking he's next in line for a title shot. But does he deserve it? Well, in his last 4 fights, Jorge Masvidal has 2 wins and 2 losses. Not too great of a record in your last 4, but let's take a look at who he's fought. Since 2017, he's fought a grand total of 5 times. He has 3 wins and 2 losses. That first win was an extremely impressive performance against Donald Cowboy Cerrone, which took place at 170 pounds. Cowboy looked incredible at welterweight up until that Jorge Masvidal fight. He was just destroying everybody at 170 pounds. It looked like he was probably going to make a title run, and then he ran into Jorge Masvidal, who you guys probably saw that fight win. Just completely dominated him and ended up finishing Cowboy via strikes in the second round, which is much easier said than done. Cowboy's a very durable dude. So that was an impressive performance, an impressive victory, and it looked like maybe Masvidal was starting to turn things around until he ran into Damian Maia. He had a very close fight against Damian Maia. Damian Maia kind of backpacked him the whole fight. He took him down repeatedly. He got Jorge Masvidal's back for a lot of that fight. But Jorge Masvidal put up an incredible fight. Damian Maia, without a doubt, is one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in all of MMA. Most people know that by now, and most people know exactly what he brings to the fight game. Most people know what his game plan is. He's going to try and take you down. He's going to try and submit you. He doesn't have great striking, but he has incredible grappling. So most of his fights look pretty much the exact same. If he can get the takedown and implement his grappling, he looks great. If he can't get the takedown, like in his fights against Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley, he can look pretty awful. Against Jorge Masvidal, he was able to take him down. He was able to get his back, but he didn't submit Jorge Masvidal. When the fight was on the feet, he got outclassed by Jorge Masvidal, and at the end of the night, after 3 rounds, although Damian Maia, like I said, could get him down, he only beat him via split decision, which means there's 3 judges. One of the judges thought that Jorge Masvidal did enough to win, and the other 2 sided with Damian Maia. So it was a super close fight. Losing against Damian Maia, especially when he's able to take you down and implement his grappling, and you only lose a split decision, I hate to say the term that it's like a moral victory, because I don't think that means too much in MMA, but in a way, it was an impressive performance even in a loss. Jorge Masvidal, he showed a lot that fight. He showed how good his grappling is. He showed how good his sub-defense is. He showed that his wrestling just continues to improve. So all in all, he lost the fight, but I would still say it was a rather impressive performance. After that, he had a fight against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who's definitely known as one of the best strikers at 170 pounds, if not the best. And it wasn't the most entertaining fight in the world, no doubt about that. Jorge Masvidal ended up losing a unanimous decision. If you look at Jorge Masvidal's overall record, he has 34 wins and 13 losses. I would say 13 losses for somebody that's on the cusp of a title shot is kind of a lot, but if you dig a little deeper and you actually take a look at those losses, a lot of them, especially the recent ones, are split decision losses, which means they were very close fights. Since 2015, he's had 5 losses. 4 of those losses have come via split decision. So that goes to show you, he had a bit of a trend, especially recently, of losing very close fights. He was in all those fights, he didn't get blown out in any of them, but he was still losing split decisions. It looks like something's changed within the past 2 years, maybe even more recent. And now we're seeing a much more aggressive game bred, which has led to some crazy finishes. You saw the Darren Till fight. It lasted 2 rounds. The first round, Jorge Masvidal probably lost that round, but it was still a competitive round. He still had his moments. And in the second round, he absolutely laid waste to Darren Till, who had never, up until that point, been knocked out before. So that fight was very entertaining. Like I said, he probably lost that first round, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that's kind of the theme for Gamebred's career up until this point. It's not how his career started. It doesn't really matter what his record was a couple years ago. It doesn't really matter that he was losing these close fights. He had a ton of potential. I think everyone's known that for a while. The dude is a fighter's fighter. He always comes to fight. He always brings it. And for whatever reason, in the past, it seems like there were times throughout fights where he was a little bit gun shy or maybe not quite as aggressive. Well, things seem to have changed. Obviously, he was very aggressive in that Darren Till fight at the right moments, and it paid off. He knocked him out, the only person to do so to this point. And his next fight, well, you guys saw, right? Ben Askren, 5 seconds. Yeah, I think you guys saw. That, I don't know if I have enough adjectives to describe that finish. Impressive, amazing, incredible, record-setting. If you guys saw the finish, if you saw the fight, you should have seen the fight. It only lasted 5 seconds. But yeah, impressive to say the least. But with saying all that, the question remains, does he deserve a title shot? Well, let's take a look at the 170-pound division. Who else is deserving of a title shot? There's only one name that comes to mind at the moment, and that is Colby Covington. Now, obviously, Colby is deserving of a title shot because, well, he had an interim belt. He won the interim belt against RDA, so obviously that means he has a legit claim to a title shot. You know, he's the interim title holder. Kamaru Usman is the real title holder, so it makes sense to unify those two belts so we can see who the real legit champion is. For whatever reason, Dana White stripped him of his interim title like he's done to so many other people. I'm not really sure why they even hand out interim titles at this point, but that's beside the point. The main point of this discussion is who's more deserving, Colby Covington or Jorge Masvidal. If you're looking at which fighter is more entertaining, I don't think there's much of a comparison. Colby Covington's a grind you out wrestler. He's gonna outgrind you, he's gonna out cardio you, and he's just gonna plain outwork you. I mean, that's his game. Colby's been able to implement that game plan to a T against every single opponent he's fought except one. His overall record is 14-1, and like I already said earlier in the video, he had a legit claim at a title shot because he had the interim belt, which the UFC gave to him. Well, I mean, he earned it after he beat RDA, but you guys get what I'm saying. So if you compare Jorge Masvidal to Colby Covington on the basis of who is more deserving of a title shot, I think the only right answer, if we're being 100% unbiased and going 100% based on the rankings and we're judging it based on how interim titles are supposed to work, then the only answer could be Colby Covington, because he's the only one that had an interim belt. But clearly that's not how the UFC operates these days. After all, it is a business, it is the entertainment industry, and I think if you ask most people who's the more entertaining fighter, whose fight would you rather watch, Colby Covington's or Jorge Masvidal, I imagine the majority of you are going to say Jorge Masvidal, especially after his most recent fight against Ben Askren. I mean, who wouldn't want to watch that dude after how entertaining his last 2 fights have been? So it comes down to a matter of, does he deserve the title shot? But honestly, does it really matter at this point? Colby Covington probably technically deserves it more. Honestly, I think he deserved the shot at Tyron Woodley's belt more so than Kamaru Usman did. I mean, they fought and beat pretty much the same opponents, except Colby Covington beat, I think, all of them first. So it would only make sense that Colby Covington got that first shot at Tyron Woodley. But once again, he was skipped over, cast aside for whatever reason, and Kamaru Usman absolutely dominated Tyron Woodley. So now he has the real belt, and now he is who you got to fight if you want to get that belt. So if the UFC's smart, if the UFC likes money, which by all accounts they do, why would they not match up Jorge Masvidal, who's arguably the hottest ticket and the biggest trending name in MMA right now? Why would that not give him a shot at the title? I mean, how's that saying go? Strike while the iron is hot. If the UFC wants to strike while the iron is hot and make as much money as they possibly can and get as many eyes on a title fight at 170 pounds as they possibly can, who better to fight for the belt than Jorge Masvidal? Who has more hype behind them right now? Who has more fan interest behind them right now than Jorge Masvidal? Take a poll, UFC. Take a poll, anyone. Who would you rather see fight for the title, Colby Covington or Jorge Masvidal? With all of that said, it also just came out recently that Colby Covington just signed the bout agreement for a fight against Robbie Lawler, which will take place on August 3rd at UFC on ESPN 5. So at the moment, Colby Covington's out of the title picture. Maybe the UFC's plans or what they're saying is that they want to wait, see how that fight plays out. But honestly, it doesn't really matter how that fight plays out. If Colby Covington loses, are you going to give the title shot to Robbie Lawler over Jorge Masvidal? No, I don't think there's any way in a million years they would do that. So if Colby Covington wins, unless it's an incredibly impressive performance, even if it is, does it really matter at this point? I can't see any way or any road the UFC takes that doesn't involve giving Gamebred a title shot against Kamaru Usman. That just seems like the only next logical step, especially, like I said, if they want to strike while the iron is hot, which by all means they do. That's how the UFC operates, especially these days. They care about the numbers, they care about the money, and I think they somewhat care about their rankings. But honestly, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that their ranking system is not the number one thing they use to decide whether or not a fighter deserves this matchup or deserves a title shot. They care about the numbers, they care about which fights are going to generate the most interest, which fights are going to make them the most money, and they care about making stars. Right now, Jorge Masvidal is a star, and his star is just going to continue to grow until if and when he loses. I don't think the UFC wants to take that risk. I don't think they want to book him in another fight with the legit worry that if he loses, his star will start to get smaller. People will start to hop off the bandwagon, and the huge money fight against Kamaru Usman or whoever has the title won't be there anymore. So if I was a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, I think it's all but guaranteed that Jorge Masvidal is going to get the next shot at 170 pounds. Deserving or not, it's the only fight that really makes sense right now. Anyways, guys, that's all I gotta say about that. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think Jorge Masvidal deserves the next shot at the 170-pound title, or perhaps you think Colby Covington does, or maybe somebody else? Let me know who you think deserves it down below and why, and I will catch you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
My goodness! Oh my God! Just like that! That is some serious power!